Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3826. It's been almost like 18th of January 2026. It's been almost like a night at 10:22 p.m. All right. I don't know. Just today I will not gonna ask a question to myself. Today I'm kind of like a thinking about a business idea. Okay, yeah. I'm not really sure, but suddenly I just got the idea. How do I got that idea? Uh, Very random. I don't know how to supposed to explain this thing. I was kind of like watching a kind of like a video regarding about a what kind of like a book should you supposed to be read and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. And there is a kind of like a somebody one YouTuber who kind of like a somebody recommend a book. Okay, yeah. A kind of like a somebody sponsor book. I went to that site and I see the book price. It was very expensive, almost like a 1,600 rupees of book. Book is really good, but the price is kind of like a something very heavy. Then I realized that ki, what if I could kind of like a simply rent this book instead of buy? Because like what exactly is this thing? Na ki the 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 average life of the book is the till you read that book. After you read that book, it doesn't really serve any kind of like a purpose at all. You just kind of like simply stay in the shelf and that's it. So what if there are so many people who have kind of like a lot of bookshelf? So what if those people kind of like simply rent or maybe like rent those books so that other people like me can able to be read those book instead of buy the book. So I don't know. I just have an idea that what if I could kind of like simply make a platform where people would kind of like simply rent the book instead of buy the book. Like kind of like simply library. Okay, yeah. Because in the library you kind of like simply rent the book for a couple of days and then you kind of like return the book. Things like that. Okay, yeah. But like a kind of like simply using the same thing in a community level or in a kind of like a local level or things like that. So I was kind of like thinking about that. Okay, yeah. So today in this artifact episode, I will kind of like thinking about all the possible point of perspective regarding about this business idea and things like that. Will I able to execute this business idea? Well, this business idea is really good. It's not really that bad. Okay, yeah. The problem is that I don't know the problem. Okay, that is the biggest problem that I don't know the problem. Okay. Now think about I'm trying to think like right now I'm gonna think. Okay, yeah. Couple of scenario. Okay, yeah. Let's just say I own the book. Okay, yeah. And this book is actually cost me, let's just say 1,000 rupees. Okay, yeah. I bought this book for 1,000 rupees. I read that book. It was really good. Now I kind of like simply now what I did is that I rent this book. I kind of like rent this book to somebody so that people would supposed to be kind of like read this book. Okay, yeah. So I went to the kind of like a platform, like basically my platform. Let's just say kind of like a platform name X platform. Okay, yeah. Not Twitter X, a kind of like a XYZ platform. Okay, yeah. So I kind of like a simply rent my book in XYZ platform. Now in this XYZ platform, the people who kind of like came to you and kind of like simply want that kind of like a practical book. Like basically this thing, I'm not talking about a kind of like ebook or things like that. I'm talking about kind of like a book, legit book. Okay, yeah. So that XYZ platform kind of like came to you and you have to kind of like give the book. Okay, yeah. Now what exactly that platform will gonna do? That platform will kind of like look the book. That book is kind of like a really good condition or not or things like that. Okay, yeah. And that book is kind of like somebody delivered to such a person who wanted to read this book. Okay, I delivered this kind of like a book to somebody, right? And this is a kind of like a platform. Now now what exactly happened? That B person, like A person who actually bought the book, the B person who kind of like read the book. Okay, yeah. Now think about the possible point of perspective, that what went wrong, what went right, and things and that. Okay. So let's just say the person who actually bought the book is from Delhi. Okay. The person B wanted to read the book is actually from Bombay. Okay. Now the person A who actually from Delhi, who kind of like read the book and rent the book. Now XYZ platform have a kind of like a simply have shift this book from Delhi to Bombay. Okay. Now all the shipping cost, XYZ platform will kind of like take that thing. Okay, yeah, that XYZ platform will kind of like handle that thing and kind of like delivered to the particular person. Okay, yeah. Now the problem is that, okay, yeah, first of all let's talk about the revenue. Okay, instead of like first of all let's just understand the money. Okay, yeah. Because obviously is this thing, the person who kind of like somebody have the book and kind of like renting the book, that particular person want kind of like some certain amount of money from this book, because the book is ownership is actually belong to that A person, right? So how that particular A person will kind of like get the money? Well, basically is this thing, and by the way, is this thing, the ownership of this book is actually for the A person. The ownership of the book is not went for XYZ platform or not went to B person, nothing at all. Okay, it's a kind of like a simply is this thing. So if the A person would kind of like rent the book, how much money that particular A person will gonna get? Probably I'm not really sure. Okay, yeah, but let's just understand. But if the A person will not kind of like assembly getting any kind of like assembly rent for this book, then why does kind of like people will kind of like rent the book in first place, right? And another thing is that now, okay, the another problem is that ki most of the books in India are not that much expensive. There are so many books are kind of like assembly like a less than 300, like 300, like a average price of the book is almost like a 200, 300 वगैरह. Okay, yeah. So basically let's just say there is a kind of like a book which actual price of this book is almost like a 200 rupees. Okay, yeah. Now 200 rupees of book, that particular book is actually kind of like a shipment from kind of like a Delhi to Bombay. Then how much shipment cost? Probably like let's just say 50 rupees, 50 to 70 rupees probably. Like let's just say 50 rupees. Okay, by speed post it take like a 50 rupees. Okay, yeah. So the 50 rupees, who actually pay that money? The XYZ platform. No? The XYZ platform is handle that responsibility and things like that. So XYZ platform kind of like simply delivered this book from this Delhi to Bombay, right? So but the person who want to read this book, he doesn't really want to kind of like buy the book. Okay, yeah, he wanted to rent the book. So obviously is this thing that he will gonna pay some sort of amount of prices. Okay, yeah. So let's think about that. Okay, yeah. So let's just take an example. Is this thing 1,000 rupees of book? Okay, the A person who actually bought this book for 1,000 rupees. Now B person, like A person actually read that book and A person kind of like put that book into the rent. Now B person wanted to read that book. Okay, yeah. Now how much that B person should supposed to be rent that book? Obviously he will not gonna spend 1,000 rupees. He will not gonna spend almost like a maybe like a 500 rupees. Definitely not. Okay, like what is the hardly price that he should supposed to be pay for rent? Probably let's just say if the 1,000 rupees of book, probably he will gonna spend 100 rupees. Okay, yeah. So basically this thing that the person who kind of like rent the book or kind of like actually want to read the book and he was kind of like renting that book, so that particular person, B person, will gonna pay to my platform 100 rupees. Okay, yeah, 100 rupees and kind of like a something 50 rupees kind of like a somebody spend into the shipment cost, and 50 rupees are actually went to the particular person who actually kind of like a somebody the ownership of the particular person. Okay, yeah, went to that person, A person. this will be really good, right? Then what will happen? Like basically is this thing, let's just say that the C person want to read the same book. Okay, yeah. So how much money that C person should supposed to be spent? Let's just say 100 rupees. Okay, yeah. Now problem is that C person is actually from like a Chennai. Okay, yeah. So C person kind of like a paid a kind of like a some sort of amount of money, let's just say 100 rupees. And basically is this saying that I will kind of like a simply like a take this book from B person to C person, right? But there is a lot of kind of like a problem will gonna happen. Okay, first of all is that like let's think about all the possible consequences and things and that. Now a person is actually kind of like a something want to rent like a person who's ownership, he actually kind of like read the book. Okay, now that particular person, a person kind of like read the book. Okay, yeah. Now B person want to read this book, so that B person kind of like spend 100 rupees and kind of like simply give this book to this B person. I am the platform, XYZ platform. I will kind of like handle that 50 rupees for shipment cost, and rest of the 50 rupees are actually went to the ownership of the book, right? Okay, and B person is kind of like reading the book. Okay, now what exactly happened that the B person read the book. Okay, yeah, B person read the book and things and that. Now what exactly happened that B person will read the book, and now that book is at the B person. Like basically this thing, if the C person didn't really want to read this book, then that book will always be there, always be on the B person. Like it always be there for to the B person, right? Like if the kind of like a book is never really kind of like a somebody rent by somebody or things like that. Okay, yeah. And if the B person is read the book, and now that particular person wanted to give that book to somebody or give that book to the ownership and owners and things like that, so it doesn't make any sense. Okay, yeah. Like basically I have to pay another 50 rupees for that B person to give the A person. No, instead of that, what I should supposed to do is that B person, like if the B person who actually read the book and he wanted to give the bag, so instead of give this book to the ownership, I will kind of like assembly, I will take this book to my platform. Okay, to my platform. Okay, so it's kind of like assembly. Now, if it is kind of like in my platform, then I will kind of like assembly deliver this book to the C person. Whenever the C person wanted to read this book and things and that. And also kind of like a shipment cost will be 50 rupees. Okay, so yeah, this will gonna happen. Now if the owners want a kind of like assembly book back, then probably like what exactly happened now? Okay, what I realized that if the owner wants this book back, yeah, this might be a kind of like a work, right? Like somewhat something like it's not really kind of like a practical, but like this is actually happened when the book price is almost like 1,000 rupees. Let's just say book price is 300 rupees. Then why the person would kind of like spend 100 rupees to rent the book, right? Obviously it's this thing na ki that particular person wanted to read the book should supposed to be kind of like a rent maybe 50 rupees. Okay, yeah, because the total price of this book is almost like 300 rupees. Okay, yeah, and the renting price shouldn't supposed to be 100, it should supposed to be kind of like let's just say 50 rupees. Okay, yeah. So if the particular person wanted to read that book, he renting that book, so he actually pay 50 rupees. So for this particular context, in the 50 rupees, I have to give some sort of amount of money to the ownership as well as some sort of amount of money to the shipment. And it is not really feasible for me because of that key. In this particular context, the shipment cost is actually always be 50 or something like that. Okay. And regarding about the ownership, let's just say ownership will have kind of like a very less amount of money. Okay, yeah, like basically ownership will kind of like earn the money is by kind of like how many people actually renting that book. And basically that ownership will kind of like get the money when you have more and more kind of like people who can, that book is kind of like a went from B to C, C to D, D to F and things and that, then ownership will kind of like get little bit cut. Okay, let's just say 10% or things and that. But the shipment cost, yeah, shipment cost will be, that's a very much challenging, right? Because of that key, yeah, that's a very challenging. Shipment cost will be very much challenging. But what exactly is this? Instead of kind of like somebody shipping the kind of like somebody every corner of the country, it's not really possible. So instead of that, a community like in the city, because city to city kind of like something, it will be far more easier. Because let me tell you one thing now, let's just say in the city, okay, yeah, there is a person who actually from the city and same person also from the same city. It can be easily available to transport because the transport cost is like a very less than that. Okay, very less than that. Like a 50 rupees is not, it will not going to take that 50 rupees. It will going to take maybe kind of like somebody 10 rupees or even less than that. Why? Because the distance is actually far less closer. Okay, yeah. So, right, probably, but it's not really happen in that way because of that like a 50 rupees price is somewhat something like a shipping in less than, like let's just say that, I don't know, dude. In the city to city shipment cost, how much it cost? In city to city, it's not really that much costly, right? Yeah. What if, okay, like basically, like I don't know how I'm supposed to explain this thing. It's at the moment now, if I'm thinking about all the possible scenario, in city to city distribution would be kind of like a really good, as compared to distribution in whole another country will not, it's kind of like a bit more costly. Okay, yeah. Because in city to city kind of like a distribution which kind of like a far less cheaper, as well as kind of like owner will kind of like a get little bit more cut. So when it get more cut means like more percentage of the renting and things like that, then most of the people would kind of like rent so many books. Because of that, instead of kind of like a book is actually at the bookshelf, that book is kind of like always been to the people who kind of like read and things and that. Okay, so it always been distributed in the local city. Okay, yeah. And I would kind of like take care of this kind of like a book and kind of like a transfer to this and that. It will be kind of like a far more convenient instead of kind of like somebody going to the bigger city, like a transport to the one corner of the country to another corner. It's not really possible, right? Yeah. And yeah, like this platform will kind of like work really efficiently in the local level. Okay, yeah. Like let's just say the cluster would be really good. Okay, so I'm kind of like belong to the Wardha, so Wardha cluster, Nagpur cluster, then possibly is this thing Bombay cluster, Delhi cluster and things like that. So basically the book is actually kind of like a distribute inside the cluster, not outside the cluster. There is a kind of like some sort of amount of book is not actually available in their cluster, then that book is kind of like somebody available nearby. Okay, like what exactly is this thing? Like my XYZ platform will kind of like a showcase such a book that is kind of like a available in the cluster. In the cluster means in the city cluster and things like that. It will not going to show a kind of like somebody outside the cluster. If my book is very rare, okay, yeah, which is, yeah, so basically it kind of like a showcase. A book is actually kind of like such a cluster which is kind of like a not from the corner, another corner of the city, is another corner of the country. Is kind of like somebody, the cluster is kind of like which cluster is nearby to me. Okay, let's just say is this thing, the book I wanted to read is not available in the Wardha cluster, and that book is kind of like somebody available in Nagpur cluster. So basically it will kind of like a far more easier, right? Yeah, like let's just say whatever the cluster might be, that like if the rare book is kind of like a somebody this and that, like it always gonna kind of like a showcase such a cluster which is kind of like a close to you, not kind of like a far away and things like that. So your book is not kind of like a simply go beyond more than 200 kilometer. Okay, yeah. So if the book is not kind of like a, if the book is not kind of like a distributed more than 200 kilometer, then probably shipment cost will be kind of like a very less. Okay, it will be very less, and it will be really good. Yeah. Okay, this one scenario. Second scenario. Ownership of the book. Okay, yeah. Let's say a kind of like a somebody owner who kind of like a some place is saying that he rent the book. Okay, yeah. A person, his ownership, he kind of like own the book. Now he rent that book. The B person kind of like wanted to read that book. He kind of like somebody paid almost like 100 rupees to kind of like rent the book and kind of like somebody rent the book. Now basically what exactly happened, that B person damaged the book, okay, accidentally or something like that. So when the B person who damaged the book, then who will gonna take the responsibility to fix the book, or who will gonna take the responsibility of a kind of like something is saying that key, like, yeah, basically that book is kind of like a damage and things like that. So who will gonna take that responsibility? I think that in that particular situation, maybe a platform would kind of like take that responsibility. Platform will kind of like try to stitch that book, or try to kind of like do the binding in a such a way that it should supposed to be protected and things like that, right? Yeah. Another thing is that key distribution. Okay, yeah. If the one book is kind of like a moving from one place to another place, then probably is this thing that key it kind of like a somebody when it kind of like a in the distribution, like a vine, it kind of like a distributing from just in the cluster to cluster, in within the cluster might be get damage or things like that. Then how we should also protect that book? I think that the platform, like my XYZ platform, should supposed to be kind of like a provide a hardcover. Okay, yeah. So that hardcover would be kind of like a protected. Okay, at least. Okay, yeah. In a kind of like assembly as much as is possible, because most of the damage would kind of like take that hardcover, and book will kind of like assembly protected probably. This will be kind of like assembly much more better way, and as well as that hardcover will kind of like assembly use as an advertisement for our platform. Okay, yeah. When the people would kind of like read that book, the other person would kind of like see the hardcover. It kind of like assembly get that, okay, this is a kind of like a platform that particular person kind of like rent the book and things like that. So which will be really good, right? Yeah. So will this platform, will this business will gonna succeed? Well, at the beginning it will not. Okay, yeah. Why is that? Because of that key, the problem. Okay, the problem is that key, couple of things regarding about the distribution, early amount of money and things like that. But the local thing might gonna work out. Okay, yeah. Like instead of making the app, okay, yeah. What if we could kind of like assembly make a kind of like assembly WhatsApp community? Okay, yeah, regarding about renting the book and things like that. But still it kind of like assembly the communication will not gonna happen very much properly and things like that. So what exactly is this thing? If I have to execute this idea, how do I supposed to execute this thing? I need kind of like a couple of amount of money at least first. Okay, yeah, to establish the business. First of all is that key, I want to make an app. Okay, yeah, I want to make an app, and in this particular app, people will kind of like a something rent the book. Okay, so what exactly happened? That key, people will download my app, they sign up. In the signing process, they will have entire information, detail like a Aadhaar card specifically. Why is Aadhaar card? Because identity. Okay, yeah. Another thing is that key, if the book get damaged or things and that, okay, so probably call and things. Okay, so it is really essential to know that their real name and things like that. Another thing is that key their number. Okay, the sign up process. Okay, then the owner will kind of like a something owner will kind of like assembly take a photo of take a photo of this book and kind of like assembly rent the book. Okay, yeah. Now that book will kind of like a see in the cluster region, not a kind of like assembly. It will not gonna seen in outside the cluster. It kind of like a seen on the cluster region. The person who wanted to kind of like read that book, he will gonna say rent and he will gonna pay, let's just say regarding about let's say 1,000 rupees of book, he will kind of like pay 100 rupees for the renting the book. Okay, yeah. Now my platform will kind of like distribute the book from uh, person A, like a person to person B. Okay, same cluster. Okay, now the ownership, the owner who kind of like a get, let's just say he actually spent 100 rupees, 1,000 rupees of book, so probably he will get like a 30 rupees. Okay, yeah. 30 rupees ownership cut, 70 rupees went to mine. In the 70 rupees probably I have to spend, let's just say 20 rupees probably for distribution. Okay, yeah. So if the ownership takes 30, distribution takes 20, then 50 rupees I have profit. Okay, yeah, that 50 rupees will kind of like a really good, right? In this will be really good. Yeah, this will be really good. If this kind of like assembly work really well, then it will be really good, right? But still it's not that possible. Why is that? Because of that na ki in India people are not really people who actually read the book. Okay, yeah. And another thing is that na ki this service is actually only and only possible in a kind of like a simply city. Okay, yeah. It should not supposed to be possible in kind of like a simply villages and things like that, because villages are kind of like simply out of things and it's kind of like a far away and distribution costs more. So in villages level it's not gonna possible, as well as the people who are kind of like a there are very less, far less. Okay, so it's not really possible at all. So too, another thing is that ki wait, we would gonna deliver that book to that particular person. How? Okay, let's just say that thing that the A person who wanted to kind of like assembly read that book and things like that. What if we could kind of like take a photo of this book and every pages and things like that, make a PDF of this thing. So if the person who wanted to kind of like read the book, but basically is this thing hard copy, if that particular person want to hard copy, he will gonna spend 100 rupees for that. Okay, yeah. If that particular person will kind of like simply want to read the soft copy, so basically for this soft copy I don't have to kind of like simply paid for distribution or any kind of like stuff, nothing really at all. And another thing is that na that soft copy I shouldn't supposed to be give the kind of like a something ownership cut to the soft copy to the owner. Why is that? Because the soft copy of the book is not owned by the owner. Okay, it's a hard book is actually owned by the owner, right? So soft copy is actually kind of like it's belong to mine. So let's just say this thing, the particular person wanted to read the book. Okay, yeah, he has an option that he will gonna pay 100 rupees to rent the book, or he will gonna pay 30 rupees to kind of like somebody read the book right now. Okay, yeah, kind of like some ebook and things like that. Okay, because if in my platform, if I have a kind of like a some book, I will kind of like take the convert into the photos and things, kind of like a some very nice PDF and things like that. So basically the person who wanted to kind of like read the book, instead of kind of like a buy hard book, he will kind of like a download the my PDF book, and that PDF book will kind of for this particular thing he will kind of like a get he have to pay 30 rupees, right? Just a 30 rupees, and the book is actually on the platform, right? But that is also problem too. Okay, so that is also another problem too, is that key, if the person wanted to read the soft copy book, why would that particular person will gonna buy the soft copy book? He will gonna buy that soft copy book from directly Amazon, which cost far less cheaper. Okay, in 50 rupees, that particular person will kind of like get the soft copy book from directly from author, right? So why would kind of like assembly that particular person will gonna buy soft copy? Okay, we will not gonna kind of like assembly let them like a 55 rupees from the Amazon, which is also kind of like a far more bigger. So instead of 55 rupees, I would kind of like give them 10 rupees, right? Because in the soft copy, I shouldn't supposed to pay anything at all, na? Like the PDF is already been I have. Okay, yeah. I just have to send the PDF. That's it. Okay, yeah. Okay, I shouldn't supposed to be kind of like a somebody paid the money for distribution or paid the money for shipment or ownership. There is no ownership cut now. Owner own only the hard book. He will not gonna own the soft book and things like that, right? Yeah, this will gonna possible. But there is also another issue too. What exactly is this thing? The ownership of the book is belong to what? Like the owner who actually bought the book or the author? Because of that, if the book renting thing, if you are kind of like a somebody wanted to execute this thing, these are all those things are actually happened without a permission of ownership. Okay, yeah, because the owner, like the author is a kind of like a somebody biggest owner, na? Okay, yeah, the author is a kind of like a wrote the book and things like that. So how is exactly thing happened? Okay, yeah, this is also kind of like a big problem. No, it's not really big problem too. Okay, yeah, because there is a something, I don't know, yeah, dude. I have to think about this possible perspective. Okay, yeah. But dude, I already have kind of like another business model. Why do I supposed to kind of like go to his business model and things like that? I don't know. It just in my mind. Okay, I wanted to. I don't know. I don't want to execute and things like that. No, definitely not. It's a lot of thing to need to figure it out regarding about stuff. But if I try, is it cheaper? No, it's not really cheaper. It's not really that expensive too. It's a kind of like a local business, which will be really good because you have to work on your cluster and things like that. That's it. Okay. Obviously, whatever the cluster that you have in the city actually is mostly kind of like a run-on city and things like that. And probably distribution. Yeah, distribution also need to figure it out and things like that. Because in the city to city distribution, still if I try to execute the city to city distribution, then probably there is a lot of stuff to figure it out. Not a lot of things. The business means kind of like a things you have to be figured out and things like that. I don't know. It's just my business idea. I just think about that particular stuff. I don't know. Whatever. This is it. Thank you.